Welcome along once again to the Cardiff City phone in, and we're calling this one tonight the transfer deadline
Hmm.
special. Which we hope. Sorry, you spilt your tea there. Which
Just
we
hope
we
I don't
hope
get
is
something tickling me in the ear, Steve, halfway through, as is tradition on deadline day.
which is maybe we're a bit ambitious with that, but we'll see. We got at the moment we've had no reports of players being spotted outside Greg's with bulging pockets of pasties and a cup of tea in the other, with a contract ready to go. But we'll see how it goes tonight. However, looking today, there are some rumours that we're quite close, so we'll see. But there's 48 hours to go, or thereabouts, to the end of the transfer window. Apparently, there's only been 35 signings, or had been up until yesterday in the championship, and we feature nil of them. But we'll see how that goes because it could be a flurry of excitement. But on the panel tonight, Alworth, welcome back, Al.
I see.
Simon Richards, who hadn't been on the show for a while, an coach, but a real human being apparently.
Hi, Steve. Just about. A bit dark where I am, though, so apologies.
Dark suits the mood. It's fine, yeah. And Steve Thomas, thanks, Steve, for joining us again.
Evening, Steve. Evening, everybody.
In your resplendent, a fantastic, the best kit we have ever had in our lives shirt. So, how great would it be to see that kit coming back?
Yeah.
I'll come to you first. There's no obviously, well, we got a match to look forward to, but we haven't got one to look back on. There's quite a lot going on in the world of football that we can talk about, but transfer deadline day coming up in a couple of days' time. So the rumors today are apparently, I think this is BBC actually as well. Apparently, we're quite interested in Nat Phillips, but there's other clubs involved, including Leeds and Blackburn. So whether he come to us, I don't know. But then the other two they're talking about, that's my first chance to use this line. I'm going to use it in a second. Firstly, we got Badu Ndiaye. I'm going to go with that for now. Yeah, I haven't checked the pronunciation on nationality, but we've also got Al, the Serbian lad.
Serbian lad. Ilic, isn't it? Is it
Yeah,
Ilic?
yeah,
Serbian
Ilic.
lad. You always need a Serbian lad in every team. I'm taking it over with a large pinch of salt at the moment, Steve, I've got to say. I mean, before we came on here, Simon said about Twitter, and how much is you don't know what you're reading, where the source is coming from. I don't know until it happens. I think we will. They'll probably get a couple in over the line. Players perhaps we haven't heard of. We'll see what happens.
So this Serbian lad, right?
Yeah.
For a long time, I can't remember what Perry G's nickname was. There was a nickname. There always was something, lad.
We
But
debated it. We debated NG on the show. We went away and we were all convinced that his name was Perry Ung,
yeah,
and we
yeah,
called him
yeah.
Ung. And then everyone came back on and said even he says his name's NG, and we were there going, oh no, but I had a Vietnamese friend who once told me the way to pronounce NG was Ung, but no one went with it. So
No, it's a shame. It's a shame, really. But I've just been looking on the very substantially valid transfer market site, and they reckon that Ilic is worth a couple of million. So would that not be a major surprise, Al? I mean, seeing as it looks like our mates down west
mm.
have signed somebody who can't even afford a surname, so called Ronald, yeah. And apparently that's a seven-figure sum, although they haven't announced it. I mean, genuinely, how surprised would you be, taking all things into account, if Cardiff City were to bang a substantial transfer fee on the table?
I'd be amazed. I really would. We don't know what's going on behind the scenes. If they do, is it to placate Bullet after his outburst? I think the club have done. For once, I think the club have been uh, pretty sensible since then, and we haven't really said very much. And to be honest with you, I think we shouldn't have said, like I said in the last show, I don't think we should have been talking back when we did in November, December, saying that we were going to splash the cash then. I think it was very, very, very naive. Sorry.
Well, no, no. I just remember something else I wanted to mention tonight. I'll try and get to it. I had a message from Ian Stewart. It's quite a lot of things for the panel, which I come on to. Steve, going back to what Al just said then. I think it was on the BBC today again. They said it's a little bit like the Monty Python sketch. Trying to think what it was now, where because we've said, we've said. I'll find the link in a second. because we said we're looking for players, like kind of everyone knows it. So yeah, it's to do with the element of surprise. There's no surprise. It's the January window. Players are expensive. Should maybe we be a bit more discreet about how we went about things.
Well, at the moment, it's all very much rumor, isn't it? I know that obviously on the various sites, Illich is being talked about. Agreed. I hadn't heard the figure, Steve, off Transfer Market of £2 million for him, but according
No, I
to
don't know what we're paying. I've got no idea what it's worth. It's just a
well,
transfer market
according
valuation.
according to various sites, a total of 3.4 million, but paid over 3 installments to get around financial fair play. So, in answer to your question, I can't remember the Monty Python sketch either, but I'm until, as Al says, until it's over the line, until they're actually being paraded and not the rumours that they're looking that they've been seen in various schools around Cardiff with their children looking at whether they should go there. I won't believe it until it's actually signed. I mean, a couple of weeks ago, Kiefer Moore was on the verge of coming, wasn't he? He bought his house in Cardiff, and he was
You've been to Greg's?
Absolutely, yeah. As they all do. So I think from my point of view, I'll agree it when I see it, and I also agree with Al that I'm hopeful we'll get a couple in, but by the end of the deadline. As you say, it could be to placate Mr. Bullet, but as usual, they are talking a good game. They've talked a good game about the amount that's available. We will be able to sign players. Errol will be backed. Mehmet's over here from Monaco to supervise it. Vincent's supposed to be flying in to help it. So they're talking a good game, but the actions speak louder than words. Let's actually see if we get these players in.
Yeah, because that's interesting. Sorry, I'll just stick with you, Steve, for now. So that's kind of interesting that there's been all this. It's the communications from the club, I think, have been a bit kind of weird, really. Obviously, Mehmet Dalman was essentially the guy who was instrumental in bringing Errol Bullet to the club. He made this announcement, but it seemed like, I know, okay, he's got a role with the club, but it seemed like more of a kind of a personal announcement to me, a little bit. And in the way it was phrased and the way it was put out there. And then we're talking about, Vincent Towns coming into Europe. Here we now are on Monday. Transfer deadline's 48 hours ago. I thought he was flying in last week. And it doesn't seem to be much, coming from Vincent Tan. Like, in fact, nothing.
Yeah, I don't understand it now. If they were to say, hold their hands up and say, we need to structure everything, so we'll just see our way through to the end of the season, do enough to get through, and then back Errol fully in the summer, I could understand that more. But all we've had is talk at the start of the window. Errol was saying, hopefully we can get a couple of players in. Correct me if I'm wrong on this, gents. Get a couple of players in early doors, so they're in at the start of January, so they can get up to speed. Now, as you say, we are two days before the end of the window, and we've got nobody in. We've shipped a load of players out. Hope we don't end up regretting shipping out the likes of Panzo and Bo, but because it's leaving us very, very threadbare at the moment. If we do get some players in, we've got a number of big games coming up, starting with Watford on Saturday. Are these new players going to be up to speed? Are they going to be fit? What have they been doing? I don't know. I will wait and see what happens in 2 days' time. But as you say at the start there, Steve, the communications have left a little bit to be desired, because it's almost like they're dangling the carrot there, and the carrot's still there, and we're desperately trying to get hold of it, but we don't know what's happening, do we?
So Simon, you probably know what the Turkish word for carrot is. I'm not quite sure. I just put it out there too.
I know what it is for meat, but when I went over there and went to many restaurants.
Well, let's go with that. I mean, that's fine. It's close enough.
I'll tell you what, Steve. I'll just jump in there for 1 second, actually, because I read a statistic the other day. I can't be sure of the source, but we'll go with it. But it was I think it was something along the lines of 80% of Cardiff City signings in the January transfer window in the last 5 years have happened on deadline day. So this isn't a big shock. What's happened this year.
Fair enough. Yeah.
But the big issue has been what you were talking about there is the communication. There's been this carrot, Turkish carrot or otherwise, has been well and truly dangled in front of the fans. And partly that's our fault as fans too, because we've had all those certain accounts on Twitter and social media who pretend to be in the know, who state that they're in the know, and they'll,
there's one call in the know, likes. I think.
Yeah, and no one's in the know what happens at Cardiff, not even those in charge, I don't think. But they were communicating that it's going to be the best transfer window ever. We're going to push on to the playoffs. We're going to get promotion, all of this sort of thing. But actually, if you look in the recent history of Cardiff City, is very much, and a lot of clubs, is very much last minute. dealings in January, and it's a tough window, isn't it? And if you look at the Premiership, I think it's something like the Premiership transfer deals have been around 40 or 50 million this January. Last year it was over a billion, mainly from Chelsea, admittedly. But across the whole game, it seems to have slowed down in this window. So not shocked. They just like to build up to the transfer deadline day, don't they, and have a fun day.
Can I just say, can I just come in there as well, Steve, and say, we wonder what the point of all this is, because if we do get these players in, a lot of them are untried. Do we really want, if we were to push on and get into the playoffs, then we're going to have a massively bloated squad again with all these players who are effectively lower division players? Because again, throw out a question there. I can't remember, as with our managers, I've said on there previously, none of our managers seem to go on to clubs higher up, unlike the people 40 miles down the west, who managers do seem to go on to better things. Similarly, with our players, we look at the players who we've got. You've got people like Harris. Yeah, he's banging him in for Oxford United, but he's in the league below. Who since the likes of Aaron Ramsey even has got, or Joe Ledley has gone on to be a better player. We are left with, we've got all these players in at the start of this season. If we do push on, we're then going to have another exercise in the summer to get rid of them. I would rather expectations are managed better, and you say something like, we're going to do enough to stay the aim of mid-table this season and push on next season. Look at our squad properly in the summer.
Which is why I think it was so irresponsible of Bullock to do what he did. Because when he came out and said, "Oh, look, we need these players. I'm really disappointed to get these players in, whatever." I don't think that was. Had he seen how we've been since the end of October? And again, I said it last week. November and December was shocking, and we had a few performances, I think, papered over the crack, or a few results rather papered over the cracks. But he's saying, well, I'm disappointed because we're not pushing on for the playoffs. Was that ever going to happen? I think he could say that at the end of October after the Bristol City game, but we didn't have. Don't really think that the performances we put in subsequent to that were really those of playoff contenders. My view would be he would probably have been better fitted to say, look, we consolidated this year. He steadied the ship and done a bloody good job in steadying the ship. What I think what he should have said was, right, we want to build now for next year. Dampen expectations, but don't come out and say, I'm very disappointed, disillusioned with what's going on. I don't know what's going on. What's happened there, it's divided the fans to a degree, because some of us think he's the best thing since sliced bread, and there's other of us who perhaps look at performances and look at results and say, well, they don't really back him up.
Well, we'll probably have a look in a moment, see if there's any comments coming in, because Ian Stewart has been in touch and he sent me 7 different questions for tonight's show, so we'll maybe come to that as well, but I'm sure there might be others. But do you think, Al, with Errol Bullitt, I wonder, is it naivety? Is it not knowing it's his first ever January window, isn't it? Let's face it, in the British system. He's not really used to the British football system. Is it a language thing? Is it naivety? It could it be some of that?
Yeah, I've often thought that sometimes he says it's almost like he's shooting from the hip. But is that a language thing? Is that kind of, you just say the words, he knows he's not hiding anything? I mean, he wouldn't be a very good card player. I mean, because exactly where he's coming from. But then some people like that. They like an outspoken manager, in a good way. He's clearly passionate, and I think he's gained an awful lot of support by going out to around Cardiff and into the Rhondda and so on, Limby Valley, going to see fans, which is brilliant, and we all want that from a manager. You can't contrast that with someone like Mick McCarthy, who holds himself up in a hotel and doesn't come out. So we're living a little bit as well. I think the Swansea win has given him a massive pass in terms of popularity. And I think that was the same, if you run comparisons to Swansea, I think that was the same with Russell Martin down there. He was loved down there because they kept beating us. And some of the, I don't know. Same going Ollie Tanner, we'd say the same thing. He hasn't done anything, but some people would say he's player of the season.
Well, he scored. He did. I mean, that one goal was a great goal, but I thought you can't live off that forever. Simon, just coming to you. Here's a thought I had on the weekend. I don't often have thoughts, as you know, but I watched the Maidstone game, right? I mean, the 38 shots to 2, but their 2 went in and they won. Newport came back from 2-0 down against, Man United, which is fantastic. I know they lost in the end, yeah. But it's an obvious thing, and Viv would love this, the Maverick, keep the faith, boys, and he'd love this. What came out of that for me, Simon, right? This is a really simple thing to say. What both those sides had, if only we'd had that, for example, against Leeds United at home, what they had in abundance for me was passion and determination.
Yeah, and it's such a strange thing, isn't it? Because how can you create that within the club, and why does it appear like it's not there on the pitch as well? And I still play football. I don't know if anyone else still plays a bit of sort of 6 or 7-a-side football on a Wednesday night, and I'll throw myself into all sorts of tackles in a game that is completely bloody meaningless, because you have self-pride, don't you, when you take to the field or you're doing a job, in whatever walk of life it may well be. I do wonder sometimes whether, that we sometimes we confuse passion and pride for, big tackles on the pitch and other things like this. Is it as simple as that? Do we want to just see people putting two-footed lunges in, or do we just want people to be chasing sort of shadows, etc.? So that sometimes comes into it. But yeah, it's a strange thing, isn't it? Where, sometimes you just have a group of players where they just don't seem to be quite, going at 100%. And I think that angers fans more than anything else. Players have a skill level. Every single individual player will have a skill level they can reach, but not to put 100% in on the pitch is pretty much unforgivable, I think. But then, Steve, if I ask you, every day when you go into work, do you give 100%? Do you leave a bit of you?
I can guarantee you,
there?
I give 100% every time it's the last pass to you and there's a queue. I go for it.
That's what you need, isn't it? So we do, but it's a good question. Is if we all look at ourselves and say, do we all give? When we're in work 100%. We probably don't. Do we have off days where we haven't got the energy or for whatever reason? So,
yeah,
do we expect a bit too much sometimes, I suppose?
I think we probably do, Steve, as Cardiff City fans. I think that's, it's a bit of a poison chalice, really. Coming to Cardiff City, the expectation levels are maybe a little bit unrealistic, but the idea of, again, I'm sure you're watching the football on the weekend, Maidstone, let's face it, that they're not a special bunch of players, Newport County, they're not doing that great in Division 2, but they absolutely, in my opinion, shamed some of our players with the amount of commitment and effort that they put in.
They did, but I think I'd temper that slightly by saying if you can't get up for the games when you're at the sixth level as Maidstone are, against Ipswich, and also the way Newport played against Manchester United, they stepped up their game as we did. We played Leeds last season in the home game in the Cup. I'd say, thinking about when you mentioned Maidstone, of course, we played them over 2 seasons in the early 90s, if you remember, when we were both in the dungeon with them. And I missed the 5-0 home defeat to them. But I saw the other 3 games, which was a 0-0 draw last game of the season, and I saw the 2 away games against them where we lost 3-0 and drew 1-1. So in 4 games in the league against Maidstone United, we've never beaten them.
Was the 1-1, Steve? Was the 1-1? Was that very early? And so August or September? I think it was August.
It was, yeah.
I went to one of the away ones. I couldn't remember if the 1-1.
Carl Dale scored our goal, and then equalised.
You remember better than me.
The previous season, we lost 3-0 there, and we were absolutely slaughtered. And of course, they famously came on New Year's Day that time. They opened the lower grandstand.
Yeah, John Williams' debut when he got sent off.
Yeah, they beat us 5. Yeah, I missed that game, luckily, but I didn't miss the other 3 games against Maidstone that we played in the league against them. Yeah. So, sorry, go on.
I'm just going to say, that is just, like the last ever game at Ninian Park, that terrible, terrible damn squib of a game, with the fireworks that disappeared up the pitch, right? And then we play Maidstone. We're up in our new ground. We get battered 5-0, and our new player gets sent off. That is Cardiff City. Welcome to our world, isn't it?
Yeah. And I thought you were going for a tenuous link there, Ipswich and Maidstone, because of course that last game was against Ipswich, wasn't it?
Oh yeah.
So I just thought you were deliberately doing that. Yeah, I mean,
I won't mention any names, but I used to work with the lady that ordered those fireworks. That's my.
Oh, did you? Okay.
My tenuous claim to fame, and she was great, and she was a huge Cardiff fan as well.
Yeah. They
And I
weren't the
think, I
best.
mean, losing 3-0 didn't help, but it just made
No,
the blow away beach balls look even
I mean,
worse,
I was
didn't it, as
crying at the
well?
end of that game, but not for the right reasons, sort of thing.
I remember at the end of that game, Steve, as well. That was the season when the expression "doing a Cardiff" came in. Because don't forget that season with 3 games to
Oh,
go,
God, yeah.
we were 9 points and 18 goals better than Preston, and Preston managed to overhaul us and get in the playoffs, mainly due to beating us 6-0 when we missed a penalty, and also we missed a penalty against Ipswich. Had we scored either of those penalties, we would have got in the playoffs because we didn't get in by 1 goal. And of course, that firework display, we still thought that wasn't the last game at Ninian Park because we thought at that time that we would be in the playoffs, but we weren't.
Yeah.
So, that was the last game at Ninian Park.
Yeah. And that firework display, no offense to Simon's friends, yeah, kind of epitomized the end of that season. Al, any
Yeah,
comments
Steve Wiggins as I said about firing from the hip earlier. He's come at it and guns blazing,
Of course he has.
which is great. Okay, forget the playoffs. We can't even score goals. Passion is driven from above management and coaches. Our tactics have been chronic, especially at home. No press, no pace, a lack of desire. And I've gone back to another quote that he said, or comment, which I'll come on to then. Our poor, tired players having time off, sending themselves in Dubai, etc. Shouldn't they have been out on the training pitch after the past 12 weeks of dirge? Well, I mentioned this to you, Steve, didn't I, after last week's show? We were talking about, I will single out Ryan Wintle, but miss him, it could be anyone. We were talking about Wintle's performance down at Plymouth and how he hadn't done so well. And the first thing he decides to do on Monday is to treat us all to how he's just had his brand new Porsche put in the showroom and cleaned up and so on. You should be reading the room a little bit when you're a footballer. And I think when your fans aren't particularly happy, posting photos of your brand new car on Instagram, I don't think is the best way to go about things. Similarly, Ollie Tanner this week has been telling us how he's in Dubai. Now, I know we do follow these players, and I know they're allowed to have time off and so on. But do that when you're celebrating. I get it. Ollie Tanner, once you beat Swansea, you can go into any nightclub you like. But when the fans aren't necessarily on your side, I think there's a time and a place. Or perhaps I've just been old-fashioned, and perhaps all players should be on Instagram.
Well, thing is with footballers, it might have changed over the. I'll ask Simon about this because Simon, your son, he's a
Yes.
very good footballer, currently in the States doing, I think, a football scholarship or something like this, and
It's Masters now. Blimey, that's how it makes me feel old.
he's a
But yeah.
master in football. He's a master in
Yeah,
football.
master in
right?
football, yeah.
Okay. But so and he's at university in America, so you'd imagine, he's also articulate and bright. Footballers aren't necessarily, chosen for their ability to win the Scrabble competition, are they? They're kind of there to whack a ball and kick people. So, are we asking too much? Is it just, I get Al's point totally. It seems to me inordinately dumb, but is it just, maybe they're just being themselves?
Yeah, and I think you're right to a degree. And we are probably asking too much of young lads. If you think back to all of us when we were in our early 20s, if we
I
were
can't
earning
remember.
15 grand a week, I mean, it's a while ago, obviously, so that 15 grand would be worth substantially more now. But if we were earning that much back then, it's probably quite difficult to keep quiet about it. But Al is spot on. If you're top of the league, you're putting in really good performances, then I don't think there's an issue with saying, "Oh, me and the boys are off in Dubai or wherever, sunning yourself." The atmosphere around the club at the moment isn't particularly positive. There's quite a bit of sort of negativity. I know Errol, most people will think that Errol's had a good season and he's done a good job since he came in, but we've already talked about that communication about the transfers and that kind of trust in the board isn't there. And the last 2 months of pretty poor displays, you'd have to say, have really dampened people's moods. So yeah, I think it's partly down to the club as well to ensure that kind of culture within that club is a bit more positive in relation to how you communicate to the fans and probably someone saying a bit of common sense, just saying to people, listen, it's probably not a good idea to get into your Porsche, take a picture and send that across, Twitter and all the other sort of places as well. So yeah, we probably do expect a little bit too much of young fellas with lots of money. And I think if we were maybe empathetic to them, we would say, well, maybe we would do similar things, but realistically, they should be tempering what they're doing as well, and take that into account.
So I've got a few things to get through tonight. I want to mention Martin Davis has been in touch and he's got an announcement, which is some amazing new pennants Remember the old days of
Yeah.
pennants in the European Cup? We used to exchange them. We've got a new one being launched, which I'll talk about, which is great. Also, we're going to be launching on Cardiff City World next week, so we'll come back to that a bit later on. And then Ian Stewart's been in touch, and I'll go to you first, Simon, with this because Ian sent in so many different questions. So talking about common sense, I'll go for this one, Simon. And of course, please chip in with your comments and questions as we go through. Let's get through them. Here's a question. I'll go to you, Simon, first, because you're a master in football, or you saying this. Why do we keep persisting with trying to pass it out from the back when we haven't got the players who can pass well, move quickly, or are strong enough on the ball to execute this tactic? All we end up doing is passing the ball across the back four, hoofing it forward for the opposition centre backs to ping the ball back to us. Einstein said the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. Mr. Bullet, does he understand the meaning of this, please? What's your thoughts on that, Simon?
My thoughts is this is kind of this modern day thing that's happened probably the last few years in football, isn't it? Their teams feel they can only play it out from the back.
They all seem to do it. Even mates don't know wherever we're doing it, I think.
But I'm just putting my hair out. I was watching who was it, Tottenham? And in some ways, I respect their sort of approach, and that they will never ever do a long ball, even if they're by the corner flag and they've got four attackers around them. They'll try and play out, and it causes so many issues for the defense. But it's. I mean, if you look at teams like Man City, they do play out from the back a lot. But if they find themselves in a position where there aren't the options or they're in trouble, they will put a long ball. Generally, they've got slightly better players than this to be able to bring the ball down and probably hit the back of the net. But it is something that I just find so frustrating at the moment. I mean, we don't want to go back to the days where we were playing the long ball from the keeper and completely missing the midfield every single time. But it's having a plan B, isn't it? We don't have particularly high standards sort of midfield players. We don't have players that can break the line, which is what you need probably if you're playing up from the back like that as well. So you do have to mix it up and you have to play to your strengths. I mean, let's not go back however many, a few seasons and some of the dirt we were watching back then. But yeah, it's something that does frustrate me in that because the other issue is, of course, the opposition know exactly what you're going to do every time.
Yeah,
you're always going to pass it out to one of two players, and all you got to do is get into their faces, and you potentially are going to cause issues and problems.
Yeah, and then we go back
too easy to play against.
Yeah, we are too easy, and that's a good point, Steve. I think that Simon's making there about the predictability. I think we have become really, really predictable. We seem to play the same sort of tactics. We seem to do the same kind of things, make the same kind of substitutions, and that also coincides pretty well with us going into a fairly terrible run. Is there much in that for you, Steve?
Yeah, I think I'd agree with that. If you look at the start of the season when we got good results and we could have got better results if things had gone our way, a place like Ipswich and Leeds and Leicester, of course, who are all teams at the top. Now, I remember the Ipswich manager, they came back and they beat us 3-2 after we'd been 2-0 up after, I think, 52 minutes. And he made the comment that Cardiff were a difficult team to play against. Now, at the start of the season, because we were under new manager, perhaps teams hadn't worked us out. Perhaps you say other teams have worked us out now. But can I come back to the world to what Simon said? I agree with what you said there, Simon. I don't think we've got the players to do it, to play out of the back. And I remember after the 2016 Euros, when Paul Trollope was in charge, he decided he was going to play the Wales way. And I remember going to Burton Albion and seeing Burton Albion beat us 2-0 because we had, I think Connolly on the left-hand side was being roasted every time by the winger for Burton. And the Burton player commented afterwards he couldn't believe how easy it was to beat Cardiff that day. And what it didn't work out was we didn't have Gareth Bale, basically. So we didn't have a player of the quality of Gareth Bale to build that system around. And we've not got a set of players now who can play out, and as was said before, it's going to go to either Gutas or Guinness, and we're struggling to do it. But similarly, we can't play the long ball game. If we had somebody like Kiefer or back under Warnock, even Ken Zahor,
or the Serbian lad,
absolutely, yeah, Ilic. If we were to have that, somebody who could actually hold the ball sufficiently and able to get the midfield forward to support it. If you got a player completely isolated up front, 2 or 3 defenders on him, and the midfield trundling over the halfway line trying to get it up, we can't do either system at the moment because I don't think we've got players that fit long ball game or playing him out from the back, and that's what we've got to address.
Well, luckily it's transfer window, isn't it?
Absolutely. Luckily, we've got 48 hours left.
So
Ask you a quick question, Steve.
Basically, on that logic, we haven't got good enough players, because they can't play them up to the back, and we can't play it long. So what are we going to do?
Go on, Simon. Sorry.
Yeah, no, because I know you've been following the Serbian lad's career for the last couple of years, and you've been sort of enjoying watching him, on a grainy video here, there, and everywhere. Is he quite a similar player to Kiefer then? Are we saying it's one or the other? Is the question I was thinking today, or
right.
is it potentially both?
But I'll give you a really good answer. You know my pasty answer when you said about doing 100%? Yeah, I've never seen the guy play in my life.
Because he looks quite tall. That's all I'm thinking.
Yeah, I think he is. I looked at some of his stuff. He didn't. He's got some European experience. He hasn't played, for really massive clubs, and historically, until his most recent move, he hadn't moved for an awful lot of money. But obviously, he has started scoring goals for Vålerenga now, and yeah, he is. I think he is that more kind of statuesque, traditional centre forward type figure, as far as I can tell. But that's only just by looking around, really. But I would guess, Al, it would have to be, wouldn't it? If there's money involved, surely it's one or the other, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%, 100%. I was one who wanted, and I wanted Kiefer back. Whether or not that comes off, I really don't know. It doesn't look it, I suppose, does it? But I just think it was something that the fans needed to galvanise us. I think everyone would have forgiven the past 12 weeks and said, "Oh, great, we got Kiefer Moore back." And sometimes you need that, don't you? Because the run of games we've got coming up, those next 6 games, 4 games against teams who are above us in the league, we're going to need galvanizing, because it's a very, very, very difficult run. I mean, it's to say there's no easy games, but we're seeing it this year, aren't we? It's the strongest championship I can remember for a long, long time. Some of the performances, I'd said earlier in the season, I thought West Brom were fantastic when they were down here. Leeds were great when they were down here. Leicester when they were down here. There seems to be, and they're still players. Sorry, they're still teams with money. Someone's made a comment here that Dave Brooks has gone to Southampton.
Has he?
Now I watched on loan. I watched Southampton the other day, and they're something else, But they've got players, like Che Adams.
What a player he is, by the way. We were after him years ago. We wanted to sign him, years ago.
Who?
Before he went Brooks.
Dave Brooks, yeah.
Yeah. We were also after Vardy before he went to Leicester.
I remember that.
Yeah, it's crazy.
All those years ago.
So it's difficult, isn't it? Bullett's got a job in his hands. I'll be happy if we just stabilize where we are now. Okay, if we end up where we are now at the end of the season, I'm happy with that.
That wouldn't be too shabby, would it? Really?
No, I just think that thankfully, the bottom 3 as they are at the moment, I think they'll go down, and then we go again next year.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was going to say there's a couple of things come out today about the Serbian lad. Lille allegedly are after him now, aren't they, as well? They put in a bid. And Chelsea are after Lille striker, the Canadian fella, Jonathan. I can't remember his surname now. This is good. We're so on this, aren't we, with our names?
Yeah.
This is pure.
So Chelsea come in and buy them for 700 million, as they normally do. Then that paves the way for that one. But also Ipswich have signed a striker today, haven't they? Now Ipswich are in against us for Kiefer Moore, potentially on loan as well.
They signed a lad from Division 2, didn't they? Was he Wimbledon player, maybe?
Yeah, Wimbledon, that's it. Yeah. So that they're potentially pushing more the Kiefer Moore transfer potentially. I don't know.
Just to say to Al, that was the Iranian lad, Al. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
His name's Al as well. Al.
Interesting point. An interesting point here has come on online. Petra, I think I'm saying his name correctly. He says Kiefer Moore couldn't be bothered once the Bournemouth rumours started coming about. Do we really want his attitude back? And that, to be fair, that's something a lot of people have said. He couldn't wait to get away from you. What's he going to bring with him? I don't know. Well,
20 goals probably in the season. That's the thing, isn't it?
That would be
potentially.
He did it once. He did it once, didn't he? Listen, Ian Stewart took a lot of time to send all these questions through. Do you mind if I just fire through? What I can do is, if I ask one to Al and work my way through them, is that all right? Yeah. Okay. So I'll take that as yes, Steve. That's a great idea. Ian Stewart says, Al, Steve Wiggy hit the nail on the head, which persistently bugs me and my mate. Why on earth don't our wingers and wingbacks have the confidence to knock a ball down the line and take on their opposing players? We never seem to run to the byline and put in a cross.
Pace. We haven't got it. I think if we had pace in the team, in any team, I think that's what we need. And if you were to say who's the quickest player in that squad, I don't know. So that's why I think we're not doing it, because I don't think, again, it goes back to capability, I'm afraid. I don't think we've got the capability.
Okay.
Tend to be inverted, the wingers, don't they? All of our wingers tend to be inverted. I can't think of, we sort of cut inside quite a lot and into the middle.
And spend a lot of time defending, which, and I think in the example, Simon, of Ollie Tanner, for example, I think when Ollie Tanner, if Ollie Tanner is, saying simple things like, here I am in Dubai and enjoying the sunshine while none of you can afford to be here and it's freezing cold and wet, sort of thing, then maybe he's a fairly straightforward player. So maybe just say to Ollie Tanner, when a ball comes, take on the fullback and have a run, go for it, attack. Attack. That's what
the
you're
thing is,
good at.
I'm always interested in this because we'll often have a go at players. But why is he not doing that? Why is he coming inside? Why is he doing that? But we don't know what the instructions are either from the manager, and that's the other thing.
No, I think that's got something to do with it.
That's got to be, isn't it? Because we have got some decent wingers, and surely they're kind of naturally thinking, beat that last man, get the ball in the box. So again, it might be to do with tactics, I guess, equally.
So yesterday in the Man United Newport game, I can't remember the name. He was playing on the right. He was very left-footed player, but he was cutting the, obviously he's different in class, but he was taking on and cutting inside and getting shots away and this, that, and the other. And I think Ollie Tanner's got. I personally think he's got the ability to do that. I'm going to go to you with another one, Simon, and I love this one. You'll knowing you're interested in the old days of the phone from years ago. It starts off with the words.
Is it about Keith Cooper?
No. It starts off with three of the favorite words you've ever liked. Why, oh, why? Okay. So why, oh, why do we not put players on posts at corners these days, Simon?
This is not just a recent thing, is it, either?
No.
I've been thinking this for ages, or keeping a player up and all that sort of stuff. Yeah. I don't know. Everything now is based on data and statistics, isn't it? So we basically managers will manage games based on the data that their teams put together. So generally, there's often a reason. It was like the fellow at Swansea now, what's his name? When he was at Notts County, wasn't he?
Reece
and
Williams?
He was asked a very similar question around why don't you keep players up in the corners, etc. And he based it down on all these different statistics that you're more likely to score if you do this and that and the other. So yeah, it's another thing that just frustrates fans, and it's possibly another frustration of modern football, isn't it? That you've kind of taken human decision making out of the game, and you're basing it on statistics. And obviously, they found out that if you put players on the posts, that makes little effect on goals conceded, I'd imagine, and potentially by moving those players out gives you more options to break. But yeah, it seems a simple thing, doesn't it?
Well, I've got another why, oh, why for Steve. So Steve, why, oh, why don't, and I agree with this one totally. Why, oh, why don't we leave at least one player up on the halfway line when we are defending corners? We don't ever pass the ball out quickly to counter attack after opposition corners, yet we've been done many a time in the opposite way.
That's a really good question. If you think about it, if we were to leave one up, that would then mean that two defenders would probably have to stay up with them rather than having the box completely loaded. But again, I think it comes back to what Simon said. No doubt somebody has studied this in far greater detail than any of us have, and has concluded that we've got a better chance of defending the ball into the box if we've got every single player back. But yeah, it does seem ridiculous. To not have the potential to counter attack, to not get the ball forward. Do you remember that? Well, then we got promoted in 2018, was it? Goodness me, so long ago now. There was one goal we scored from a counter attack in the home game against Sunderland, where we got the ball so far forward. Kenza Hall was up, I think, and the ball got played up to him. He then took it down the wing. Joe Rawls was busting a gut, got forward, ball got played across, bang, brilliant goal, due to us being in a position to counter. So it's not something that we've not done before. So, why not give it a go?
So Steve, do you think, this playing out from the back and all this and this, this one touch, football and all the rest of it, notably playing from the back and these things about, having players on the post and having wingers on the wrong foot and all this, it strikes me a lot of it is sort of dictated by fashion. It's like fashionable to play this way, and you don't want to be the odd one out. Is it as stupid as that, do you think?
It could be. It's the way things are going, aren't we? Because we all remember, obviously, young people like Simon and Alan here wouldn't remember as well as we did. But
those youngsters,
they would They would be as rigid. Everybody would play 4-4-2, wouldn't they? And before 4-4-2,
Yes, as in the film.
Can I just sorry?
It was 2-3-5 before that.
Sorry, Steve. Can I just interrupt you both? Only because we've just had a comment in on exactly that point. So I don't like interrupting, but
go for it. Yeah, go for it.
My wife might say something different, but no, I get a word in here. Rich Davis said, "Get back to playing 4-4-2." Right?
Hey.
He said it used to suit us. Strikers hunt better in pairs. Chopper and Bothroyd, Evans and Alston, Hemmerman and Hatton, Pike and Dale. Well, do you know what? I think if we did do that, okay, it sort of throws something into the mix. You know, you've got like opponents couldn't play the way they want to play if they've got two strikers to mark. And I think sometimes, give it a go.
Everything's secular in football as well. You know, we're all playing out from the back at the moment. We're all playing pep ball. 4 years' time, someone in the Premier League is going to go, do you know what? Let's play Warnock ball. Let's get it up there quick. Let's miss out, let's get it up to the big man. And they'll start getting some points in because everyone will be so used to playing out from the back and out those sort of tactics that everyone will change to that. So, yeah, it is very much a secular thing, I think, within football, those tactics. And at the moment, it's the zeitgeist, isn't it? It's the tippy-tappy out from the back. And it doesn't work for everyone. I think it's fair to say.
Interesting to pick up what Al said there. A little while ago, and I'd thoroughly recommend it to anybody, there was a fantastic documentary I saw on YouTube about the 1974 Dutch team and how basically they changed the way things operated by having total football. So the other team couldn't man-to-man mark because they were forever changing positions. So your left back would bomb forward, and then the left midfielder would come back and cover it. And the goalkeeper in that team, ironically, this was 1974. Remember, the goalkeeper in that team was not the best goalkeeper they could pick for the Netherlands at the time, but he was the best goalkeeper with the ball at his feet. So he was the one who could build from the back.
Was he the Dutch equivalent to Ryan Alsop?
Well, for our older viewers, and I'm not looking at anyone on the panel, okay? We used to have a games teacher.
Speak up, son.
We were playing football, right? And he played us in. Now we were kids, 4-4-2. That's what we brought up on. And he played us in the WM formation, right? And we were comprehensive school kids, and we were playing with a right half and a left half and inside forwards. None of us knew what the hell this man was on about. He said, "Come on, it's the WM formation." I always remember it, and it stuck with me. Here we are, 40 years later, and I can still remember the fact that I had to play at right half. I mean, whatever that was.
Wow, that is going back a bit, isn't it? See, not such a youngster. After all,
no.
I've got another YOY. And I'll ask you this one. They're quite long questions. I'll try and chop it down a little bit. He says, and it goes back to the games on the weekend, really. Why can't we be more like those other clubs on TV games, closing down, harrying the opposition, putting in quality tackles? Why can't we do the same thing? All we seem to do, and the Leeds game, absolutely, Al, you'll get this straight away, absolutely springs to mind here. All we seem to do is stand off the opposition, put in namby-pamby, inverted commas, tackles. There seems to be no guts, spirit, passion, or desire in them. How I would love half a team of Graham Kavanaghs to kick the opponents off the pitch. Not literally, but you know what I mean.
Why didn't we pay or give the FA Cup the respect it deserves, and why didn't we play a full team at Sheffield Wednesday? I honestly think that sends out a wrong message to everyone at the club. First of all, you're saying to your first team, we need 5 or 6 new players. So you're saying to your first 11, you're not good enough. We need 5 or 6 in. He said that. And then he goes to the FA Cup and then says, "Oh, I'm going to give you all a rest now. Even though you've only got 2 league games in January now, I'm going to give you all a rest." You want players chomping at the bit and you want them throwing themselves in. I think it starts above, doesn't it? You've got to give them the right sort of motivation, possibly. And I think it's giving them the wrong indication to say, "Well, I tell you what, don't worry about the FA Cup. We're not bothered. We'll just pack the coach out with some kids on the bench, this sort of stuff." And then why are we surprised when there are other teams were doing so well? We're sat here going, look at Maidstone. Okay, possibly had they raised their game? Of course they had. But these players, they're playing for Cardiff City, they should be raising the game for every bloody game.
Well, for fans, the FA Cup is really important. Maybe not for managers because they've got other things going on and pressure. But my first big game I remember was Man City. God, 94? I can't remember. We only beat them
The
And
penalty.
Mark Greaves
Penalty
saved the
save.
penalty, didn't he?
Yeah,
In
yeah.
the last 10 minutes, and then you got Leeds in the FA Cup, then you got our journey to the finals, and all these other games in and out. It's just, yeah, we're not going to win the FA Cup, but there's some amazing. And you're watching it on TV, you feel a
We
bit
came
envious, don't you,
close.
when these teams are. Yeah, we did. To be fair, if only Ramsey played, but you feel a bit envious, don't you? Because all these teams, the crowds are going, it's exciting. You get
Yeah.
last minute winners. It's fantastic. And what Al said there, I think they probably needed the rest of the players for the trip to Dubai because that's quite a long journey on a plane. You need a break, don't you, before you get there.
They need a
To be
holiday in
honest.
Tenby
No,
or
it does.
something after that.
I'm hoping
I think
now.
you're right,
I am hoping that the FA Cup has found something at the moment. I think ITV do a really good job putting on TV. I think a lot of us are getting back into it, and I really, really hope that possibly managers come in and they should be told, look, come on, we have got so many of us started watching City in the kit that Steve's got, okay, and I started the season before that, and then that season 76-77 we had the great cup run when we went out to Everton and we beat Tottenham and the Wrexham game. They're massive. We haven't got a lot to celebrate, and when we're looking for clips of Cardiff City over the years, a lot go back to that FA Cup run. They go to Peter Sayers' goal, and the last minute win against Wrexham, the 3-2, and they're part of the history of the club. The kids now growing up with the club are like, oh yeah, we go down. There's only 5,000 in the stadium because we don't give a damn about the FA Cup. But they complain, go, why can't we be like Maidstone? Well, we can't have it always, can we?
Kids today, Ale. Kids today.
Yeah.
If you look at it as well, go back when we got the final in 2008. So some of the football we played, the goal that Jimmy Floyd Hasselbank scored against Wolves into the top corner past Wayne Hennessy. I think was it Andy Gray, the Wolves defender, who almost ended up on the bob bank, the dummy that Jimmy Floyd Hasselbank sold him before he put it into the top corner. And then, of course, we had that fantastic day out where Ledley scored at Wembley against Barnsley. And then, of course, as you said, Simon, as well, if only Dave Jones had played Rambo, we don't know what would have happened against Portsmouth. And also, we had the fantastic day out when we scored that 118th minute equaliser against Liverpool in the League Cup.
That was incredible. Yeah.
And correct me if I'm wrong. The only change we seemed to make in that cup run in the League Cup was having Tom Heaton in goal instead of David Marshall. Apart from that, we would play, and I'd pick up on El's point as well. If you look at it, we're not going to go up this season like with Malky. When Malky was in his first season, nobody expected us to get the League Cup final. He was steady in the ship that first season he was in, and we got to the League Cup final and damn near beat Liverpool.
I've always said one of my greatest games that I've seen and can remember was Middlesbrough away in the cup, and the game in between where Whittingham scored that goal that you said about Hasselbank, wasn't it, against Wolves, and then Ledley against Barnsley. Whittingham's goal,
one of the best goals,
unbelievable.
Yeah.
And that day I was a City fan was absolutely incredible. So you're by fielding your reserves, you're robbing a generation of fans of the possibility. A lot of our fans now of a certain age were brought up on the FA Cup success, okay, and the League Cup success relative, and we were on the crest of a wave then, weren't we? And I think these kids then, we've all said, oh, our kids were just used to seeing City do so well, like my son's in his early 20s now, we've been to Wembley all these times, and he thought that's what Cardiff City did.
Cruel, really, isn't it?
Yeah. He has so much to learn. I got a couple more YOYs here. 2 more YOYs, and then they're going to go to the announcement from Martin, which is great. We'll come on to that. I'll go to you, Simon, on this one. I think you like it, and I got a good one there for Steve. Yeah. So, hang on, try to phrase it. Why, oh, why do our players have to go down the road of feigning injuries, wasting times, and moaning at the refs and throw themselves to the ground? It's pathetic. He's not talking there specifically about Cardiff City. Why?
The general culture.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it is pathetic, isn't it? It is annoying, and is it something? It is something that's fairly new over the last 10 to 15 years. I'd imagine.
I think so. Yeah,
it wasn't really in the 90s that's when I kind of started watching football, late 80s and into the 90s, etc. You can't really remember it too much, but yeah, it does seem so strange because again, when you're kicking the ball about on a Wednesday night, with your mates or whatever, down the five-a-side pitch, you wouldn't even consider screeching if someone slightly brushes your toe.
Have you never played for penalties, Simon? Have you never played for
never? I am a centre back. I don't go past the halfway line. I've never got near the penalty box for the most reason. But again, it's probably, I wonder if there is that sort of idea that, obviously dead ball situations are so key to creating XG, and opportunities to have a shot on target, etc. That it's possibly something that is even coached these days. Behind closed doors in football clubs, where the manager will have that you'll have that conversation as a team potentially.
So earlier on we had NG, right now we've had XG. For those people who don't know what XG is, can you break it down for us?
Expected goals. So yeah, you might lose.
Very nice.
This is
nice,
the classic Swansea way, wasn't it? When they were getting 55 shots on target, but losing every game sort of 1 or 2-0. But it was like, yeah, but we had all those shots on target. We should have won. But that's XG. So you can say, well, Leicester had 4 XG and Cardiff had 0.5 or whatever, and Cardiff won. That would be impressive. But again, it's so much is data driven now in football. And there's analysts covering all sorts of different elements. You've got video cameras everywhere just picking up on these stats. That you'd imagine it is to do with the creation of XG and opportunities, but it is annoying because do you know what really annoys me as well is when you're watching a video on Twitter or something. And this is a rugby player that gets hit, and and he's on the floor, he's got blood pouring down. Then you got sort of this is a football player getting hit, and they're screeching from the top of their lungs, and it is a frustrating thing. And hopefully it's not all players, but something I'd like to see out the game definitely.
So I'm talking about that the kind of era of football being more should we say more manly and more straightforward. The last one is for you, Steve. Yeah, and then we're just going to whiz around because we haven't got that long, but we've got enough to talk about other stuff. Why, oh why, Steve, do the players insist on wearing gloves when it's cold? I know that Jason Psycho Perry is never happy on Radio Wales commentary when he sees gloves on players.
I can't answer that. I think you'd have to ask the players concerned. Also, the thing that puzzles me is you see players with short sleeve shirts on in gloves as well. What's the point of that? Can I don't really hijack Simon's question, but just add something there. I see the MLS have introduced a couple of interesting new rules this season designed to tackle that. So, for example, on a substitution, if a player doesn't go off within 10 seconds, the player coming on can't come on for another minute. Similarly, so that's going to cut down a bit of time wasting. Similarly, if a player stays down for, I think, more than 15 seconds, they then have to, whether it's a head injury or not, if they stay down for more than 15 seconds, they then have to go off the pitch again for another minute. So that should, in theory, mean that teams want to keep 11 players on the pitch. So they will hopefully not go down those. At least something in Major League Soccer in America is doing something to try and address the time wasting.
Yeah, well said, Steve. One thing which really annoys me, it's been a bit of a ranty show tonight, which is quite nice.
Why oh why?
Why oh why?
Why oh why?
I think it should be a weekly. This should be weekly. I think it should be a weekly.
It's got a weekly feature, yeah.
This week's why oh why.
I'll tell you what really annoys me is, I'll say this to you, and then I make an announcement about Martin Davis. When a player goes down, right, and they're like 2 inches on the pitch, and they're rolling round, get him off the pitch, just get him off the pitch.
It was funny,
why do they roll around by there? No.
I was watching a match last week. I can't remember, it was a Premier League game, okay? And Dean Ashton was one of the summarisers on Sky, and he was way, way, way too honest, okay? And he said, obviously he doesn't play anymore. He used to play for West Ham, didn't he? And he said, oh, well, as footballers, that's what we would do. And he was basically saying about cheating. And he said, oh, well, no, footballers, this is, if that was me, I would definitely roll there. I'd stay there. I'd try and get that off the ref. And we all know that he really do it. But I was sat there kind of like gobsmacked that he was just coming out with it all. Yeah. I was like, oh, there we go. There we are.
There was an instant in the cup game on the weekend, and I can't remember what player it was, but he'd taken a bit of a dive. I think it might have been one of the Newport players, actually. May even have been Will Evans, actually. Took a bit of a dive, and the co-commentator said, yeah, he did well there to win that because he clearly wasn't fouled, Right. Yeah. But there we go. Let's go to Martin's announcement. This is lovely. You like this, Al. So Martin Davis, who was a great guest on the show. I know he does his own thing on a Sunday, but we'd love to get you back on, Martin. He was talking about, at the beginning of the European Cup games, I don't know whether you remember this, Simon, the captains of both sides, they'd exchange pennants with each other. And Martin's been working on this, and it needed updating because there were a couple of things which weren't mentioned. So he's added in some recent things. I've got them in front of me now. They look absolutely beautiful. So I'd really love to see this. Really nicely done. And anyway, these new pennants they'll be going on general sale tomorrow morning via the Premier Bluebirds Facebook page, and also via the Twitter account CCFCDSA. So good luck with that, Martin. That's fantastic. They look absolutely amazing, and yeah, they were great guests of the week, weren't they, Martin and his mates, Al, when they came on?
Yeah, fantastic. If you have a look at any games when we played Servette and Dynamo Tbilisi and so on, all those photos, and even before that with Don Murray, I suppose, Real Madrid, that sort of thing, they've all got that brilliant photo of us giving across the pennant, and it was a huge thing. Now, again, going back to sort of the 70s when I started going, my dad wouldn't take me to night games. But then again, he used to make up for that in the morning. I'd get up in the morning as a 7, 8-year-old, and he brought me a pennant from the club shop for the night before. So I had them all around my bedroom. But they
Lovely.
weren't Cardiff City pennants. They were just any random club. He must have gone for the bargain bucket, and just gone, oh, I'll get him a Wolves one or whatever. And I had them all. I had them all round. It was great. They were part of growing up, I think.
Yeah.
I guess it's a QR code now, probably, is it, when the
Yeah,
captains come out?
exactly. It's
Why, oh, why?
Well, some clubs, Simon, are getting rid now of printed programs, aren't they?
Yes, that's right.
Are they?
Thing,
Okay. Money saving, I suppose.
Yeah.
Talking about you mentioned Don Murray. I noticed that Gary Bell, who Gary Bell's one of the nicest people I've met. Never mind, an ex-Cardiff City footballer and a fantastic footballer who I idolized when I was a kid. He's part of the new ex-players association at the club, and nice to see that happening. All the obvious suspects: Damon Sill, Roger Gibbons. Pretty well everyone is down there on the match days, but that's a nice step in the right direction, Steve, as well, isn't it? Nice to see that happening.
Most definitely, yeah. I talked about the shirt that I showed you at the start. The two players on duty there were the two you just mentioned there, Damon and Roger, and it was like they treated me like an old friend, like they'd known me forever. Of course, I'd known them from watching them back in the day, but they were so good. It's great that the recognition's going the other way as well.
I'd like to get Roger on the show, actually.
Steve, I should interrupt there. Something you've forgotten to say, and it ties in with this former players thing. Next week's special guest, or you're not going to announce
Oh,
it?
yeah, okay, yeah, sure.
Can I announce it?
Yeah, go on.
Because I feel like I know it.
Yeah,
Okay.
no, you initiated it.
I did.
Yeah.
So next week's special guest, and I'm going to go all over Facebook next week with this because he's a proper hero of mine, and he's now he chats with all sorts of City players, City fans online. So next week we've got Andy Dibble, who's going to be a guest. And I got in touch with him with regards to the players, former players association, Peter Kitchen and a few others. Peter Kitchen's been on before, and he said he'll come on again.
Great,
Andrew
brilliant.
Dibble, yeah, he was superb. Andrew Dibble is a real sort of cuts across a few generations because he came back as a coach, didn't he? So there's people who see him as a player, and I think he'd be fantastic next week. And I'm really, really looking forward to that. And then hopefully when Steve's on, we can get Damon and Roger Gibbons on as well. That'd be great.
Yeah, that would be really nice. Just got to share a really quick Roger Gibbons story because I got to know Roger a little bit because of the time I was at Red Dragon Radio in the old days, and so I knew him a little tiny bit. And so we went to watch a golf tournament at I think it might have been Celtic Manor, something like that, or I don't know where it was, some golf course style, yeah. And I had my dad with me, and my dad had like a really abstract sense of humor. So Roger Gibbons is winning this golf tournament now, yeah, and so we watch him down the last, and he's turned out he's won the tournament. And I said, "Oh, Dad, this is Roger Gibbons. This is going to be like one of those Vic and Bob punchlines now, yeah." And my dad said, "Oh, Roger Gibbons, you must know your onions." Dad, please, there you
Tommy
go.
Cooper,
Yeah, that's Dad's for you. Right, listen, we got 48 hours to go, more or less now, even closer, yeah. So bare minimum, right? The bare minimum. Just quickly whiz around, Simon. Bare minimum. In terms of positions, really, the bare minimum you think you like and we desperately need before the transfer.
I think we got the Babadoo fella.
Is he signed?
Well, I think it's a given. Come on, Steve. Have a bit of belief. No, it sounds like it's there or thereabouts, doesn't it? I always think if the BBC reporting something is close, not always, but generally that's kind of the way to go. I think we'll get Kiefer Moore up front.
Do you?
And maybe someone in sort of the central defence area, whether that's Nat Phillips. I reckon 3 is probably about right. I'd be surprised if it's more than 3. And it's probably going to be those 3, I reckon.
Okay. So, Al, what's your thoughts?
I'd love it if it was those 3. I'd be over the moon, gotta say.
And what about the Serbian lad?
Well, we were saying earlier about, Evans and Alston, weren't we? Hemmerman and
Yeah.
Hatton.
We could have Will Evans.
Well, we could have
Big
more
and
and
big up
More and
front.
Illich. There we go. Why not?
Yeah.
Yeah, could
Can't
work.
afford them,
Steve, what about you?
We need the spine. We need a striker. We need a central midfielder, and we need a backup centre back in case something happens to Gutas and McGuinness.
Okay, so Nat Phillips would be great, actually, but whether he'd come to us or sit on a bench, because whoever's going to come, I think they're going to be backup. We'll have to see on that. So we're joining Cardiff City World next week, so watch out for more news on that. And Simon will also be one of the guests on next week's show, actually. And as I say, Andy Dibble, it's going to be the star turn on that show, so that'll be great. The pennants, well done to Martin, come out tomorrow. Thanks to Ian for so many questions for tonight. And the big news, of course, is which is quite exciting, is that Sunardo, our new signing, played for a Belgium second division side on the weekend. They kept a clean sheet. So hey, the
Man of the
future's
match
all
as well.
looking good, isn't it? Pardon? Was
Man
he?
of the match he was,
Hey, there we go.
Brilliant.
And,
Whee.
yeah. Ojo and Davis played, and of course Bagan's still out there. I'd just still put on record one more time. I would personally love to see Bagan and or Davis back at Cardiff City. That could also happen. Who knows? We'll see. But thanks for a great panel.
Thank you.